Hello, I'm Croissant to Nostalgia's Perspective, a podcast where die friends look back on the media which has influenced us. I'm Georgia.
I'm Jay. And this week I'm completely thrown, but we are talking about Vlogbrothers, the YouTube channel. And Georgia, can you explain what Vlogbrothers is?
Sure. Unlike Jay last time, I have not prepared a synopsis because anything that just naturally falls out of my mouth is genius.
Sure.
So, Vlogbrothers. Two brothers. What's the word for brother in Welsh? No. So, John Green, Hank Green. I'm sure you've heard of John Green. John Green is the author for Fault in Our Stars, Looking for Alaska. We've talked about him anyway. And then Hank Green is his brother. Back in 2007, when the internet was first starting out and YouTube was first really getting off the ground, the two of them decided on New Year's Day that they were going to communicate only through videos to each other that they'd produce daily. So one after the other, every other day. And then this kind of snowballed and it became really popular, and eventually led them to be making other things such as Crash Course and podcasts and loads of different brands, etc. They made a community called Nerdfighteria. It's filled with loads of merchandise and people and events, and they still create videos, not every other day, but certain days of the week. They're always under 4 minutes. And is there anything else I have to add? No, it's still generally going on strong. Its peak was when The Fault in Our Stars came out. But they while in their videos, they discuss pretty much every topic under the sun, from what is going on that week to different philosophical ideas to science things, books, etc. And
yeah, nice. I think that was not I feel like that was very clearly not written down. But it was also a pretty good, holistic explanation of who they are, what it is. Yeah.
It came from the heart.
Yes. And very good for it.
So, Jay, why did you pick Vlogbrothers? Are we gonna not mention that this is a re-recording?
I think you just did. It's a re-recording, guys. The first one was really bad. And so we're hoping to do a bit better. And if this one's really bad and we upload it anyway, you know how bad the first one was.
It was
the
so
bar
bad.
is set low.
But I don't even remember most of it.
We mostly just talked about Waterstones and Audible. But anyway, so I picked Vlogbrothers because while it's kind of not in the wheelhouse of stuff we've done so far, it's a YouTube channel, and so I kind of had going in the first time, how are we going to discuss this? And it showed it the first time we recorded it. But at the same time, it's probably been the most important media in my life, and so it felt wrong not to discuss it, or at least try to discuss it. So I discovered Vlogbrothers when I was 18 probably, and through John's books, so bought the box set of his books and started reading them, and in the back of one of them, I think The Fault in Our Stars, it had an advertisement for Vlogbrothers, and so I was like, oh, okay, cool, I'll check that out. And then I just started watching it and kind of went down YouTube rabbit hole with it, just kind of not watching chronologically, just kind of jumping all over the place with it. And we'll talk about this a bit more later, but we've obviously talked about Looking for Alaska and what we kind of have been able to take from that, and kind of touched upon, I think, what we've taken from like other books of John's.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Vlogbrothers really like cemented that for me and just taught me so much more and had such an influence on who I am and how I see the world, kind of, and how I approach the world. So yeah, big deal for me, which is why I picked it.
Yeah.
And why we're going to try to stumble our way through talking about it.
Do you know what's really interesting? Is that there's been a couple of things now where I have said, like, oh, I started listening to this thing, and you have gone, well, actually, like, my first introduction to this thing was, like, in your car or something like that.
Yeah.
And, like, Vlogbrothers is very much something that you introduced me to. Like,
Yeah.
I'd read Fault in Our Stars and Looking for Alaska, but I obviously hadn't checked the back page, because I did not know existed, and so therefore, Vlogbrothers very much reminds me of your like second year university room, and like I don't know, I think it was like personal, but it was something where we actually, like, in the beginning of our relationship, it was an indication that we had something in common.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
To explain like a bit of backstory about our friendship, we were in the same friendship group, kind of. We had a mutual friend, and basically we were going to end up living together, but
Yeah.
I was closer to some people, Jay was closer to other people, and
Yeah.
then I can remember I came down from my room at one point during the first year, and I think you were reading something like Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Right.
And so I struck up a conversation about that, and then eventually we kind of like, we'd read similar books, and then as you were getting more and more into Vlogbrothers, and I kind of was like occasionally part of that conversation, and I started watching them too. So
Yeah.
I kind of like, my idea of Vlogbrothers is very much attached to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And we ended up, I think, in the third year as well. We watched through 2007, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Which is fun.
It was fun. We probably would have gotten through more, but I think it was just the end of the time we were living together.
Yeah. How many, like, it's kind of a difficult question to answer, I guess, but like, how much have you actually watched of Vlogbrothers then? Because you obviously watched the 2007 with me, and then you've just kind of jumped around, and I think I knew of a period where you were watching them fairly regularly.
Yeah, I watched all of 2007, and then occasionally on my recommended came like ones that like interested me, and so I'd watch like ones from the past that interested me, and then I'd say for the past, oh god, like actually quite a while, like for the past 3 to 4 years, I've watched them like semi-regularly. Like, right. They always come up on my like recommended on YouTube, and I'd say like if it's something that interests me, I'll watch it, and majority of them interest me. Like the title like grabs me or whatever. So like it's weird because I'm in that weird balance of saying like, oh well, I haven't watched them consistently, like I haven't like whatever, but like I kind of have. I've kept up to date. You know, I might miss a few weeks, but for the most part, that's just because my relationship to YouTube has gone on and off.
Sure. Yeah.
Anytime I'm on YouTube, I'm watching Vlogbrothers.
Yeah.
Anytime that I get distracted by something else and I'm not on YouTube, I'm not watching them.
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. And in terms of their podcast, I was really listening to Dear Hank and John for a while, but I got to a point where I couldn't listen to it for a couple of weeks, and then I just never caught back up.
Yeah.
listen to the Anthropocene Reviewed quite consistently. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Cool.
So the first thing I wanted to talk about, had down to talk about, was probably the way in which they impact me the most. Their dedication, or dedication's the wrong word, but we're just going with dedication, to unironic enthusiasm. So, like, loving things and not being afraid to just love them wholeheartedly and kind of not care what anyone thinks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that was very evident in their early videos. They had a lot of silly videos and then just being kind of stupid. And just kind of embracing that and embracing nerddom. And, like, that's something that I was really not good at when I was younger. I was always very reserved in that way and, like, not wanting to put myself out there too much for fear of being made fun of and stuff. And this obviously, like I said, came at a time for me. I discovered them when I was like 18, going to uni, and as I've talked about before, like, just come out very much embracing who I was and who I wanted to be, like, and very much having in mind that this was a perfect opportunity for me to shape who I wanted to be and who I wanted to be seen as.
Yeah.
And then Vlogbrothers come along and they give me kind of the answer to that question, I guess. That, like, this is who I want to be. I want to be someone who can love things unapologetically and be open and kind of loud and proud about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they almost showed me the template to that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I really like their unironic enthusiasm. Like, I really like the way that I think, like, thinking back on it, if you look at the noughties, like, if you look at the nerd kind of like culture,
Yeah.
I think, and if you, like, I'm obviously going to simplify this,
Sure.
but in the noughties, I think it was very much like popular is popular, nerd is nerd, and, like, nerd is looked down upon. Like, being into books or video games or anything like that.
Yeah.
Is looked down upon.
Yeah.
Then,
and it certainly wasn't the mainstream.
No. Then I think that in the 2010s, what are we calling that?
2010s, I guess.
2010. In the 2010s, there was a more prominent nerd culture, but it often came, at least my experience with it, was this kind of toxicness. This, like, I am better than you because I like these things. And, like, a lot of gatekeeping and things like that. And, like, there was still a lot of shame tied to it. Like, I like these things, and, like that duality between an inferiority complex and a superiority complex of, like, both feeling shameful for liking nerd stuff, but also a gatekeepy, like, I know all of these different things and you don't, and therefore you're not allowed into my culture. And what I really commend Vlogbrothers for is having a nerdy culture that is just so positive and so uplifting and so embracing and inclusive, and, like, and kind of getting rid of that duality, because on the one hand saying, like, you should be proud of the things that you like, and also, you know, everybody is welcome no matter what level they're at. So far, even though I've been in and out of, like, the, you know, nerd area, I guess, like, and even though I've, you know, read some books, haven't read other books, listened to some podcasts, hadn't listened to other podcasts, I've never yet experienced well, you're not a real fan of this because you haven't done whatever. Which is great, and, like, not a lot of sub nerd cultures can say.
Yes, and I think part of that as well is that I'm sure there are people within the community, unfortunately, because there will be in all communities, that are gatekeepy with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's never where John and Hank stand with it, and they are very openly against that stance on it. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And like, yeah, and they're very good speakers. I will give them that. The two of them are both like very good speakers, and they do have a way of, you come out of a video and I'm like, I am gonna be more like myself.
So kind of going back to what you were saying as well about some of like nerd culture, even around that time, being quite gatekeepy in that. I think there was also a thing of, there's always been a thing of it being very male dominated as well. Like,
very straight male dominated.
Yes, that there is that like nerd gamer type who obviously, when these things were becoming more mainstream, so it's like the same time, so you had like Big Bang Theory and the MCU were like big nerdy things happening around this time, and both of them have this history of being less inclusive from being smaller communities and being quite gatekeepy in that way, I think, as well. And like you say, it is a nerd community where you can, that kind of embraces all nerdiness as well. Like, one of the main pillars of it is like Harry Potter, and a lot of it, they've said, like, grew out of the Harry Potter fan community. But then it's kind of all encompassing of all nerdiness and all like, so there's like fan communities like that, and there's also like love of knowledge and science, and it's just very all encompassing and all embracing and all celebratory.
I really love their passion for learning. It was something that like I didn't feel, I mean, I'm not special anyway, and I'm sure plenty of people in school felt like this, but just didn't so much express it. That I think I'd struggle to find a topic where I didn't want to learn, which I didn't want to learn.
Right.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, like, no topic is worth like being ignorant about. Like, if I could do an A level a year, I'd love to do it. Like,
Christ.
I'd
that
full on.
amazing.
Yeah, you can actually I'm actually considering, you can pay like £17 a month to get an A level qualification. I'm considering doing history in September.
Oh, I was literally talking to Steve, my husband, yesterday or the day before about, because he did history at A level. We were talking about A levels and stuff, and I was like, I really wish I'd done history, because I think I would have really enjoyed it.
Well, the reason I'm considering doing it is because like I took history for GCSE and I loved it, but I wasn't great at exams, and I wasn't great at exam pressure. And so I wonder if now at 25, going back and like, having done higher education and being a bit more cool-headed, and there not being that pressure of like, you need to get A's in order to go to university and to do this and la 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 la.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether I'd interact with it a lot more. And if I fail, I fail. Like, like, what's the matter?
It's without all of the bad things about education.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that Vlogbrothers has really helped me embrace that more, because both in their main channel and in their like side channels, they're very much, they include like so many different topics, and they make learning, like, I don't want to be like that adult that's like, they make learning fun, but also they do make learning fun.
Yes, and accessible in a way that, like I say, school isn't, because it has all that pressure to succeed, whereas I know that obviously, so they have Crash Course, which you've mentioned before, where they've discussed a bunch of topics, and it is kind of what it says on the tin, like a brief explanation to a lot of topics. So that they started with world history, and it's like, we're going to do a 10-15 minute video on this period of history, and then this period of history, and kind of going throughout history and different places in the world and everything. and it's kind of like a brief overview. And then, so they've done that with a bunch of different topics, and then they also have SciShow, which is very science-based, and then they've got a bunch of other kind of channels, but those are the main two. And it is that ability to, like, I know, that's what I was going to say. I know that they've been useful for, like, kids still in school, like, supplementing education and stuff, but that's never how we've experienced them. And experiencing them as, like, an adult, the joy of them for me is that I don't need to be learning this, but it is enjoyable just to learn something for the sake of learning it. And like, knowledge is great. And it's great to understand the world better in all these different ways. I
think it's a real shame that what the current education system does is it gets you to become more and more specialised, which, like, it definitely has its benefits, but, like, it starts off quite wide with you learning, like, basic about, like, most topics, and then it's almost like a triangle that's, like, slowly, like, narrowing. And that means that unless you pick different, like, if you don't pick a topic, you never learn from it. Like, you never learn anything more about it. And so I have found Vlogbrothers and Crash Course to be an amazing way to introduce me to topics that I was majorly interested in, but for whatever reason, I didn't choose in education. And given me enough of a brief overview and an accessible overview that I can watch it at any time. I don't feel like I have to have any prior knowledge, and encourages me to look more into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's also, like, we're kind of going off on this, like, rant against education, but I love it. You, like, when you make your GCSE choices, speaking very, like, Anglo-centric here because that's the only way that we can. When you make your GCSE choices, you're 13, 14?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what you want to do, necessarily. Like, the people that know what they want to do at that age are really lucky.
Yes.
Whereas, like, I know from my perspective, I wish I'd done drama. And I didn't. I tried to do media, but because the way that they assign things and stuff, I couldn't do it. But, like, I really wish I'd done media, because I love looking at, like, into that now, and the amount of YouTube channels and podcasts I listen to that are about, like, analysis of TV and film. I so wish I'd done that now. And, like, I'm now watching Crash Course Geography at the moment, which I think if I had a better understanding of what geography was, I might have done that. And also, it is the thing, like I was saying, with, like, because the way things were assigned, I couldn't do media, which you can't do everything. You can't learn everything, like you were saying, because they try to, you have to go down a route. You have to specialise, essentially. And I wish I could have just done more. And this is a way to do more, like, to learn more and to learn more broadly.
And I mean, it's, like, that's not even considering the fact that depending on what school you go to, it depends what subjects they offer. I mean, I was looking for, like, writing research. I was looking at the system, so, like, the schemes of private schools, and, like, private schools that are, like, in my area, and they offer things like classics and politics and Latin and all of this, you know, things that, like, I just weren't options. And that means that, like, it's not even an opportunity. Just because, like, one family has the money to send their child to private school and another one doesn't. I mean, I went to quite a, like, well-off public school. There was loads of opportunities for me that wouldn't have been to other schools in the area.
I mean, the main thing as well is that with regards to that is arts. That, like, more often than not, I mean, it's at both ends of the spectrum, I think. More often than not, when schools are underfunded, the arts is the first thing to go. And when schools are well-funded, then there's a more of a focus on like rigid education and like
Yeah.
academic subjects kind of thing, and the arts aren't typically seen as that.
I mean, one thing I look back on is that between GCSE and A level, I dropped art, and that's not a regret of mine, but it's something that I get sad about because it was something that I felt I wasn't good enough at, that I
Yeah.
couldn't get the grades to go to university.
Yeah.
And so I had to make a choice between, do I do something I love, or
Yeah.
do I do something strategic so that I can get UCAS points
Yeah.
to go to university?
Yeah.
And like, so it's not a regret because, you know, I ended up like, I don't think I would have been able to have gone to Bath Spa if I didn't get those points.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I gave up something that I really loved doing.
Yeah. It's really sad that that decision had to be made.
Yeah. And I mean, like, at the time of choosing A levels, the college closest to us offered philosophy, and my sixth form didn't, and so that was a choice I had to make.
Yeah.
And at one point, we looked at, like, my school even looked at me doing philosophy in the other college while attending my college, and in the end, a teacher sat me down and she said, why do you want to do philosophy? And when I kind of gave my reasons, that like it was something I was interested in, la la la, she said, those aren't good enough reasons. Unless you want to do something with philosophy,
Yeah.
don't bother, this is too much of an effort. And so it was like, okay, then I won't bother. Like,
Yeah. And I suppose like gaining a better understanding of the world
yeah, just
and, like,
wasn't a good enough reason.
and people's perceptions in it isn't a good reason, apparently.
No, which is why I have majorly enjoyed the philosophy crash course.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite crash courses.
Yeah.
I think philosophy, they did a really good job with it.
They really did. Education, man.
Yeah. I must say, when you were talking about art, like, it reminded me of something I'm really proud of 13, 14-year-old me for, is choosing to do music at GCSE. Because that was a choice of what I want to do over what I feel is like academically sensible.
Yeah.
Because like I got my second worst grade at GCSE in music, but that was one of the grades I was most proud of because it was something like out of my wheelhouse that I wasn't great at. Like, I always had a good grasp of like maths and English and science, and arts were always more difficult for me, but I was always interested in them. And so I was really proud to have chosen something and not cared about the grade, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, so much pressure is placed on the grades.
Yeah.
When that's not the most important thing. And obviously, like, pulling it back as well, that like that is what is great now. It shows that the most important thing, Vlogbrothers, Crash Course, everything, shows that like the most important thing is learning.
Yeah.
And getting a better understanding of the world, whether that's in really like specific topics or in general topics, because everything links together as well, is the thing, that like everything's divvied up and split up at school to make it easier to teach, which is fair, but it all connects together and it can all be useful in understanding the world in a million different ways.
Yeah. I mean, it can't be denied that a understanding of history helps you understand art better, or that an understanding of English helps you understand drama better, or that an understanding of maths helps you understand science better. It's all linked together, but for some reason, like you say, it's all separated.
Yes. And so much emphasis is placed on like maths and science and like English to an extent, rather than like humanities. I remember specifically being looked down upon.
Yeah.
Which is like, seemed absurd to me then, but really feels absurd to me now, that like we're gonna look down upon the subjects that try to teach us about people and how people think and how people have thought in the past and how people express themselves, and like, how is that not the most important thing? Like,
Yeah.
it's maddening.
It is.
Yes. And speaking of kind of on the topic, one of their like sister channels that they help launch isn't specifically linked to them, but is Sexplanations, which brings up another failing of education, of sex education.
Yep.
Which that is a channel that like I watched in uni, that I should have been introduced to in school.
Yep.
By like the school, and like taught these things about sex and sexuality that kids should be taught, rather than being shown pictures of what happens when you catch an STD.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even get that. Can you believe this? I got a heavy abstinence is key talk.
Right.
And then one time we had an RE lesson, and a priest came in and said, like, and in answer to a question, went on a whole spiel about how homosexuality was a sin. Like, and it was really jarring, because in the, like, we had posters up saying, like, some people are gay, get over it.
Right.
So, like, well, it was that weird duality of, like, don't bully others, don't use slurs or anything like that, but also let's bring in somebody and, like, tell you that, like, you shouldn't be gay because you probably will go to hell.
Right.
Like, and the whole, like, don't use, like, slurs or anything like that was more directed to the slurs are bad than it was, like, homophobia is bad.
Yeah.
Which is just top notch. And I've never watched Sexplanations, but I do definitely feel as though the way the Vlogbrothers kind of treat inclusivity has helped me become more accepting and inclusive of things, like in regards to myself and regards to other people, because there's just no question of it, you know. Like, it's just acceptance without thought and without disclaimers or anything like that. Come as you are, and you are part of this community.
And it's like, however you feel is right. And oh, it's great.
Do you know, I hadn't, sorry, side note, and then I need to pee, sorry, but like, side note, I'd completely forgotten about that priest until suddenly it came up naturally, and now I'm like, what the f***? Like, that was bad.
Really is. People, go watch Sexplanations, seriously. Like, if you have any questions about sex and sexuality, like, even if you're a bloody adult, go watch it, because it's so it's hosted by a doctor of sexuality, Lindsay Doe, and she very much embodies, like, the Vlogbrothers enthusiasm, like, even more so, like, turned up to 11 kind of thing. And is just so celebratory of everything sex and sexuality, and it's so lovely when that is so not what you normally get. And I mean, everyone has something to learn about sex and sexuality, because God knows we're not taught it in school, and God knows we're told not to talk about it in adult life.
I do not understand why sex is one of those topics where it's like, we are going to provide no education about it. Nobody is ever going to ever want to talk about it openly, but also you're supposed to be amazing about it and have all of this knowledge about it. Off you trot. Do you get what I mean? Like,
yes.
What the hell is that about?
And then we end up with societal situations that we find ourselves in, which, shocker. So the last thing I had down to talk about, that we've kind of talked around, I think, without properly diving into it, is more of their content specifically to do with looking deeper, like philosophizing, I guess, about the world and our place in it. And this generally I have down kind of takes the form of, I mean, they do it a lot nowadays. Like, that feels like a trend that's happened throughout the years in their stuff, is that, like, as time's gone on, they've got more philosophical.
Yeah.
But, like, traditionally has been in their Thoughts from Places videos, which are kind of videos that they'd go visit somewhere and then, I don't know, how would you explain them? That, like, they'd go off on a tangent that would culminate in some, like, brilliant philosophical realization.
Yeah, it's like they'd go to, like, the one that comes to mind immediately is like John in Washington, and just describing like what it is that like he's seen like while there, and like what he's noted, and then what it's made him think about,
Yeah.
and like what he's kind of like what lesson he's taken from that.
Yeah.
Which is very much actually shaped a lot of the way I think, like my internal monologue thinks.
Yeah.
As I'm going around places, like I often hear, like, it sounds sad, but I often hear like very John Green-esque like voice in my head as I'm like considering things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's interesting, and I think it's hard for me to know whether that's true for me or whether I was like it before. But I think it's also something where I have to believe that everyone is like that a little bit. Like, I think everyone has those thoughts slightly, but to hear them put into words so eloquently.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually got noted down as well that, like, they remind me of the conversations that you have at 3:00 in the morning. That always feel like the most important conversations.
I mean, I think that the reason that we ended up doing a podcast was because me and you were always going to do some form of podcast, like when we used to stay up until like 4 a.m, like just chatting about things.
Yeah.
And they'd get super philosophical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I really like the way that they take smaller aspects of life and they really consider it and the implications of it and what you can learn from it. And, you know, it's not always like happy clappy. I don't think it's ever really happy clappy, but I think it balances that line between not being cynical. I think it's their philosophy will often be realistic and acknowledge like darker sides of life, but also look at the hopefulness that is within it.
Yeah.
And what, even if something is bad, what we can hope to learn from it in the future.
Yeah.
Which is always a great way of looking at things.
Yeah. And it's always put across in a way that is very heartfelt and feels very genuine, which is important, I think, because like even at the times when they like it could feel happy clappy, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because it's always very grounded in reality. We're never ignoring the bad. We're never ignoring the bad, but we're never getting stuck in it either.
Yeah.
And that is an incredibly important like lesson to learn. And I think that I have learned from them, like, you can always find the good and you can always choose to be hopeful, as hard as that may be at times.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they could take anything and they could philosophize it. Like,
yeah.
I'm looking at my desk and I'm thinking like, okay, I'm gonna pick up, I've got an octopus. Have you ever seen them? It's like a little toy octopus and you fold it in and out, and like on one side it's like happy and pink, and then like when you flip it around it's like sad and blue.
Right.
Have you ever seen those?
No.
They're great. Wait a sec, I'll show you. I'll send you a picture. I'm sure the majority of people who are listening know what I'm talking about.
Right,
If not,
okay.
like, I'll post it. So like you do.
Where are we posting it? We don't have any social media.
We'll post it somewhere.
Okay, yes, we are going to make an Instagram. Okay.
Just so we can.
Just to put this picture of an octopus on. That will be our first picture on our Instagram.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's
no.
supposed so it's supposed to be it's really good for me because I'm not very good at conveying when I'm happy and when I'm sad. So
Right.
sometimes I'll like just flip it over and therefore my partner knows when I'm sad.
No. That's really cute.
Oh,
Uh,
they are super cute.
yeah.
Um let's move on. This is becoming too
I
rambly.
was gonna say, how does this relate back to Vlogbrothers? This is where, if it were a Thoughts from Places video, we would now pull it all together into like, this is what we can learn from it, and the octopus represents something. How if you're sad, you can always flip it around. There's always hope on the other side.
As humans become less and less inclined to share their emotions so openly, we find things like this little octopus as a way to communicate with others. We should always communicate to others how we feel, even when it's hard. Hank, I'll see you on Tuesday. And then Hank would be like, I mean, it's just so cute, but like, why? Who invented this? Like, how did this come about? Why can't we just speak to each other? Why is this such an issue? But one thing I do know for sure is that we'll get there someday. John, I'll see you on Friday.
Wrong way round.
Wrong way round, dang it!
Also, do you follow Hank on TikTok?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like that was edging more TikTok Hank
Dang
than
it.
Vlogbrothers Hank. Sorry.
Oh, he's great on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, this
Don't
is the
eat
thing.
grass.
This is the thing. I see his TikToks on Facebook and Instagram, so I don't need to get TikTok. But yeah, that reminds me as well, a little side tangent, that like I feel like I joined for John. Join for John, stay for Hank is very much my truth for Vlogbrothers. I think I used to relate more to John, and then I related more to Hank.
Yeah, I think I'm more still John.
Yeah, that's
emotionally.
fair.
Which is strange because I think that, like, in terms of. That's actually interesting because, like, in terms of, like, you know, we're two podcasts now. Who would be the John and who would be the Hank? I think that outwardly, I'm more the Hank because I'm louder.
Yeah, and I'm more the John.
More the John. But emotionally, I feel more like the John. Like.
Yeah. I see that. And we should all strive to be a bit of both.
We should all strive to be a bit of both.
I'm really trying my best to wrap this up because I know this is the last segment of the podcast. But I feel like I'm doing a bad job of it. So what I might do is I might just stop it here and, you know, transition.
No, wait, before you transition. Stop.
Okay.
Stop the transition. Don't.
Okay.
Anthropocene Reviewed. The book is coming out and you should listen to it on Audible. We are not sponsored by Audible, but we love Audible. Audible is the best.
But we're not getting into that again. That is literally, that was half of our first attempt, was talking about Audible and how Waterstones should do their own version of Audible. We're not doing that again.
Shh. We're not talking about that. Audible is lovely. We love you, Audible.
We didn't actually really explain what the Anthropocene Reviewed is, but that's fine. Go and listen to it. It's basically just like what we were talking about with Thoughts and Places, but like very specific to one random thing from the world, like very thoughtful essays.
Just to warn you, the episode on Googling things will make you cry.
Yeah.
I ugly cried in a park thanks to that episode.
No. So that was Vlogbrothers.
Yeah. Go out and learn, kids. Go out and learn.
Yes.
There's a lot in the world.
Yeah. What are you watching on Crash Course at the moment? Are you watching any right now?
Not right now, no. It's because I'm currently trying to currently work and do a master's, and I have 3 assignments due in a couple of weeks, and
yeah, you're still dealing with the problems of actual education.
Oh God, actual education.
Yeah.
I Are you watching anything on Crash Course at the moment?
Yeah, like I say, I've been watching the Geography, which is the new series, which a lot of the episodes feel quite information heavy, to be honest, and so like half go over my head, but like still good to watch, still enjoyable to watch. It's mostly been about like physical geography and like the weather and stuff, which is really interesting. It's just getting it to stick in my brain, but that's a personal problem. That's not their fault. And then they've got a series starting. They just released the first episode of Zoology, so it'll be interesting to see what that's like as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So next time, it's your pick.
Next time it's my pick, and we are doing Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, the
Yes.
first Studio Ghibli movie.
Was it the first, was it?
Wow, this is highly contested. So...
Did we get on to that next time?
It's not that. It's like...
Okay.
It's not that, like, thing. It's just that if you collect the DVDs, it's down as number one. I believe it was the first one to be released in Japan, but the second movie was the first to be released in the US. So a lot of people consider the second one to be the first one.
Because apparently we don't care about what happens in Japan.
Yeah. So yes, we'll be discussing Nausicaa.
Lovely. I look forward to it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Do you want to do the end credits?
Thank you everyone for listening. If you want to get in contact with us, you can do so at our website nostalgiasperspective.co.uk, or email us at nostalgiasperspective@gmail.com, or leave us a comment on YouTube, or a review on Apple Podcasts, or on Instagram. Comment on our picture of an octopus. Follow us on there. Like, it'll be our first social media, so I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure we'll post on there all the time.
Yeah.
We'll try. We'll really try. And we will see you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. I'm guessing that's what you said.
Yeah. I'm not sure this episode is any better.
Oh, it's so much better.
Yeah?
It's so much better. You have no idea.
Okay,
You have
good.
no idea.